Social media gives a sense of urgency on what we should want. It's just like an advertisement. It's like one big billboard. It's just there's millions of billboards out there. So here's some pressure I'm going to put on you if you're, whatever book you're writing. Hey, does your book have any romance in it? Because, we can people watch a lot of book talk videos, BookTube probably. As a writer, you probably look at them, and most of the books have some sort of romance in it. So you see what I mean by advertisement of it's advertising romance novels, or at least adding it. Before I even knew, and it's just, mine does, right? Personally, mine does. I don't know about yours, but most novels nowadays do, because of the fact that, romance is a part of everyday life. But I do get novels that don't have it. I'm completely fine with that. Novels that don't have it, sure, still a good read. But it's just, I find the dialogue in nowadays novels and romance dramatized in a sense. And what I mean by that is even in prose, a trail of blood. A trail of blood was moving on her lips just because she has lipstick on or something like that, right? Or, I don't know. I don't have any examples on me. I haven't read that many romance novels. It's just what I've seen from quotes from the books that people are absolutely obsessed with. And just because someone's obsessed with it doesn't mean you're obsessed with it as a writer. You write what you want, and that is creative free will, in a sense of being able to write what you love and love reading. If you love romance novels like that, then that's completely fine. It's just not my forte. It's not my taste. I don't really like romance novels, especially since I am a guy, with the guy just saying like, oh, you're mine. Like what? I only incorporate the only poetry or anything that might seem romantic in a sense in my own novel is because I incorporate that into my everyday life. Poetry is something I do whether I was writing novels or not. I started writing poetry before I wrote novels. And I started writing poetry before I even knew what the heck book talk meant, what book talk incorporated in. And I've learned a lot more after trying to become a creator, and I'll get more on, what it did to me later. But has your novel done anything purely off of popularity to get a copy out? Now, it depends on your goals. If you love writing, then write what you want. If you want money, then you know what? You just go on with the normal goals. But most of the time, people love writing. We love the ecstatic feeling of that 5% joy mark whenever, we're not downing ourselves. But it's just, it is your thing based off of popularity. And I don't want you to go full on like imposter syndrome, stuff like that. It's just the fact that, for me, at least, I don't want to be doing that. I've made sure that my story is unique. I can't really find any books that are quite like it. But yeah, I think it's just absolutely phenomenal what some romance people are able to do. I respect the work that they do. I don't respect the dialogue, but yeah. But okay. So basically what I was saying is that it's harder to find if it is, and that's why I was talking about with imposter syndrome, is that it's hard to find if you did it purely on popularity and such. If you don't worry about it that much, and you're fine. But for me, it's a lot harder, and of course it's a lot harder than it sounds, because one voice is that advertisement that subconsciously entered your brain, and it's just saying, okay, yeah, this is how you want to write romance, or this is how you want to go about your scenes. And I think this really gets in the way of what writing is. Writing is a phenomenal breakage point that should not keep things look like we're going in a circle with some of these books. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't have your brain or your experiences, so I can't help you on figuring out whether or not it is. I could give feedback, but you have some of these things you have to figure out by yourself. It's like figuring out which advice is good for you. Advice is subjective in writing. Everything is not going to be good for your writing style, and whatever your writing style is, you'll just have to figure it out, right? And I do know I went over that in last episode of Doubt that comparison is a thief of joy. It sure is, though it can also be an inspiration. A lot of these bad scenarios that I think writers face can be changed if you just have a different headspace or different headspace of a different point of view is what I was mean, honestly. But sure, like if I were to go full in on romance, but is that my style or who I am that makes me, well, me? No, it doesn't. It would just look repetitive, right? But of course, it depends on who you are as a person, not just who I am. And I see social media posts that made me from day one just day one of looking at them, just full on shrieking my head back. Like, I was like, neck was craned back, and because I saw, in those How I'm Writing a Book as a Teenage Author shorts that are quite popular, I've seen people like making Spotify playlists. I'm like, wait, you play Spotify playlists, or you have Spotify playlists for your characters? That is something I wouldn't do. And if you play those during, I thought everyone used to write in silence, but people actually like writing with music on. So it just depends on what type of person you are. And this gets down to the point that writing is experimental in a sense of seeing what works best for you. And if you don't try anything new, then the only option you've done is obviously going to look like the best option. But if you branch out and have an open mind, then the what you haven't done will look a lot brighter than it did whenever you were just tunnel vision, right? We all have different stories to tell. We all have different experiences, like I was saying. You have different experiences, themes, or central points of your plot and your own life story to ring out in your own stories of novels, novellas, short stories, poetry books, etc. That, no one tells you what to do besides yourself. If you take inspiration from someone, then how is yours going to be different from theirs? It's like how Brandon Sanderson said it. Of course, this is going to be 100% accurate. He went more into depth into it, a lot more words. But to put it bluntly, he said, quote, "If you take all my advice, you'll just be a worse me, a worse version of me," unquote. You'll just be a worse version of me. Because if you take, that gets back on the point of advice is subjective. So if you can take things that you like, just put your own flair to it. All right. And that's like a long intro. That's a long rant. But we're going to get into like the actual thing and be able to talk more about experiences personally. Okay. So with that long introduction on the last page, feel like I had like a whole freaking page to say. My mind's been fluctuating between these like all day, and I finally get to say it, and I said way too much. Hello, friends, all people from emails to recommendation pages. It is a pleasure to see you all again, and I'll leave you with that. Let's get on with the actual video. So what I was saying more, I think I said it earlier, is I've seen, I kind of went over with a Spotify playlist. So if you didn't know, my first YouTube short was How I'm Writing a Book as a Teenage Author. Cool. That's neat. I only did it because of the fact that it was bound to get viewers and bound to make me grow a community faster, because that's what I wanted to do. That's what I feel like I have here, is a community, whether it's one person sometimes, which is completely fine, but in that one YouTube short, it has like over 200 comments, and over half of those are my replies. Yeah. So it's just and being able to make a community where it's not me on a pedestal, we're writers. It isn't, it's two-way. It isn't just like I've seen, no offense to any booktubers out there, but you see people give comments back, and then there's no comment from the creator. Obviously, they have more comments than I do, but I try my best, and I will try my best as time goes on and this community grows, which I hope it does. But I just want to meet new people. I want to see how their perspective in writing can possibly change mine, because taking in other people's perspectives can really change writing and give you more ideas for what to experiment on your writing and your prose, your plot structure, stuff like that. Not directly taking it, but just seeing how other people write, with music, without, for example, and just testing those two to see which one makes you more productive and making quality words in your writing, or may plot notes and all that. And another thing was, I was really surprised once I heard that that discovery writers are more common. That's obvious. If you don't know what discovery writer is, it is discovering your story as it goes. That's how I was for like the first day, and I made a timeline that barely helped. But the amount of plot things that I've seen for lore and all that, personally, I have all my lore and all that stored up in my noggin, but basically, I was just surprised everyone wrote so much down, because I know in my first YouTube short, I said that I had a lot of notes, which is true, but like two of those, one of them is a map for my world. The second one is, I think, literally what I was doing whenever I was plotting, I think, one chapter. I've only plotted one chapter, and I wish I didn't. And then the other ones are literally all stuff I need to do in editing, what I need to improve on, what I need to check to make sure that, everything is flawless in a sense, because, editing is like sharpening a dual blade. So you gotta make sure, you poke yourself in the finger and you bleed. That's basically the type of sharpness I'm wanting, so therefore I have a lot of things. But if you don't have a lot of editing notes, and that's completely fine. I mean, we all have different writing styles, so yeah. But it's just, taking more perspective from social media on seeing how other people do things is really cool to see, how creative people can get, and of course with the Pinterest boards. I haven't been on Pinterest in my life, but honestly, social media has changed some things for me. My perspective on modern day romance novels has been changed, and I think I would have to say I actually started reading Red Rising. I read like the whole entire series. I already had the first book, I just hadn't read it yet. Social media got me into that, which, that's cool. Sci-fi dystopian, sick. But realistically speaking, it's done sometimes more harm than good, with comparison. But now we're over that hump. We've already gone over the hill, so we're fine. I don't think that we should be judgmental as much as on ourselves, because I've seen many examples of writers having a very good story in their second draft and then they over edit. But I don't want you to be thinking about that. Just edit, write, do you, man. So we're just going to be moving on to a new topic now. And a new topic is going to be basically, but I didn't realize until one of my friends told me, hello, hopefully you're watching, that, it's really hard. Most people don't actually commit fully to a novel. And if you've already made it this far, I have a lot of stuff to edit out. But if you've started writing a novel, I say finish it. You gotta finish it. You can move on to different projects, right? I only recommend like 2 projects at a time. But at least try getting that. I know, for me at least, I get done with a project either it be because most of my other stories were during breaks of my story where I want to take a couple days off and experiment things with different perspectives and basically see that without, going full into my story and having something new. But that's me, right? So you can do multiple projects at a time. It all just depends, but I've realized from my friend, that people are not able to normally finish novels. I've seen people who say they've published them. That's cool, but, obviously there's going to be always more people trying to say that they're making a novel or writing a novel then there's actually people publishing them in the end. Of course, there's some stupid statistics that are fake. But, it's like 99% of writers writing a novel don't publish it. And that's a no do for me. That's a no can do. If it just goes back, if you're going to try something, then you might as well try your hardest on it. Right? Unless you're injured or something like that, just try your hardest. I mean, there's no harm in it besides getting tired. And if you get tired, then you might want to. You'll get better sleep, scientifically speaking. At least that's how my body works. But it's just, if you wanted to write a novel, and you get these doubts of saying that you won't ever publish a novel, then what are you doing? We want to make sure that if you can publish a novel, that is phenomenal. If you can finish a novel, that is phenomenal. And I don't mean a first draft. I mean the complete editing process. I've done 2 drafts, so I guess that counts. But, even a first draft, okay, let's just say you finish only 1 draft. And now you're editing or you're going to second draft, etc. That is phenomenal. Give yourself a little pat on the back. And if you want a break, give yourself a break. I hate breaks, but it's not my decision. I can tell you whatever you want to hear. Or what I've liked doing is giving raw information, raw relatability. In the fact that no one is perfect. I'm not perfect with my writing skills. Tolkien wasn't perfect. J.K. Rowling. I'm not in the same conversation as them, and you're still listening to the video. I'll say this. When you find yourself comparing, you just got to remember what I said in last episode of Dow, that, well, I don't even know if I said it, but if you're burning in doubt, then you must have something built. A couple logs, a whole structure, a whole tower. See what I mean? And you could have this whole castle, but if a fire is not checked out, then that castle is going to burn. If no one ceases to stomp out that tiny little flame that started, then the fire spreads exponentially, right? You're supposed to pay attention if you get doubt, but you're not supposed to pay attention whenever you don't have doubt. I say this, change your mindset whenever you see people succeeding. Think to yourself that I'm a competitive person, so I see that person as competition, rival, whatever. See that as motivation to get to their level or greater. And I assure you, whatever your age is that most of the time you have more time than most people think. There are other things that you can cut out. I've said this in previous episodes, but if you're really serious about this, then why are some of y'all playing, I hate to call some people out, but why are you sometimes doing more self-gratification, so like video games and stuff like that, instead of writing? I know it's always easier to get to self-gratification, don't get me wrong, video games are cool, or whatever you do, whatever your hobbies are. But if you want to think of writing as a future career path, you got to realize that hobbies have to take the backseat. I know that maybe your parents, maybe friends will say that, work barely, especially if you're not an adult yet, that, we got to enjoy this part of life, but that's what everyone else is doing, and I want to kind of get better than that. And whenever someone takes a break, then normally that's the time to, try progressing. I'm not saying wait until I get done with until I publish my novel and then you start working. I'm saying work, and then give yourself a well-needed rest whenever you need. And I don't mean that if you're feeling off that day to not write, because I heard this from one of my coaches in sports, and he said the best progress comes from going out on days that you don't want to go out on. Working hard on days that you don't want to work hard. Because I assure you, if you're listening to this on your bed or whatever, and, either you write on your phone, laptop, PC, computer, tablet, whatever, or, paper, typewriter. For most writers, it's the hardest thing is sitting down to go write. And then once you finish, for me, it's like 20 sentences. And then you're not getting back up for at least another hour or 3. See what I mean? I think I've already touched up on most of these things in earlier episodes. I just want to give a fresh, a refresh on those topics, and give a bit of social media things. And I think basically the main point of this video is finding yourself. And I will say it's a lot harder than it sounds to find one person's self, because finding yourself is such a mystery in life for most people, especially whenever we have these advertisements already corroding our thoughts from a young age, especially in, what's the generation below me? Generation Alpha. They're now getting more tech, so there's more advertisements. I get that my generation and, generations before that have watched a lot of TV. But social media and, short form content, all that, it even more harps on corroding. I know that there's dopamine stuff with that, but also corroding how we perceive the world and who we truly are. But I think we also have to learn that these experiences also make us, and I get that's hypocritical, but is life sometimes not hypocritical, man? Would rather be walking on concrete than drowning in obsessive thought of, I know it's a bit off topic, but obsessive thought of if my novel's good enough. And I've seen videos where people, they say they've been holding back on writing, and I sometimes laugh to myself and just tell myself, they probably, they got that bit of writing motivation, and they probably were still the same person they were before that video. They just got a better mindset to go get up for one time, and to, what was it, the video say, stop holding back. That's kind of this video's point as well, is stop holding back on your writing in a sense of being who you are. And I know that's difficult to find, but you have to really, to find who you are and what you want to write, I think you really have to get down to why you're writing. Doing it for fame, money, or like me, I love writing. I love talking to people, finding people, and that's why I also create content and podcast episodes for people. I've talked for way too long. Bye, friends, from emails to recommendation pages. I hope this wasn't too long. Had a lot on my mind today, and the past few days I haven't uploaded. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go now. Thank y'all for watching. Take care.